Hello, everyone. I'm Daniela, marketing specialist at Phyron, and today on the agenda is all things AI and automation. And I'm very excited to be interviewing Mats Lewan. Mats is a futurist, journalist, author, keynote speaker, and advisor who focuses on tech and innovation as driving forces for change. And Mats, thanks a lot for letting me interview you today. How are you doing?
Thanks, Daniela. Very fine, thank you. It's a lovely day here in Stockholm, so I'm just happy.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Mats, there's all this hype around AI these days, but AI and automation have actually been around since the 40s and 50s, respectively. So where do you think all this recent buzz is actually coming from?
Well, most people certainly have heard about AI, but the thing that really changed last year was the ability to connect and really get experience of AI through ChatGPT, and also the image opportunities with Midjourney and Dolly and those applications on the web. So I mean, that's a big difference. That so many people now get connected with this technology, and that's also what I find really exciting. Because if you look back, what really makes a change, if you look at the internet, for example, I made some HTML coding and websites in the 90s, but I can't say that we were particularly interesting. That's the stuff that me and my friends did, and that was just the early days of the internet, of the World Wide Web. But only when lots of people started to use it, it became really interesting. So that's always the point where technology gets interesting. Well, lots of people start using it and try to imagine what kind of new applications you can find out and new use cases, etc. So that's what's happening now with AI.
In the beginning of the 80s, Dr. Alvin Toffler wrote his famous book, The Third Wave, where he talks about the emergence of this post-industrial society, aka the information age. And as a fellow futurist, what's your take on it? Do you think he hit the nail on the head? Was there anything he got wrong or missed altogether?
Well, I think he perfectly caught the idea of the information society, information era, because everything is based in information in the digital era. And the big I usually say there are three things that digital technologies change in the world. It makes it very easy to automate stuff with one single machine. You just change the software. So you've got a multi-purpose automation stuff. And then you can copy that, whatever is digital, at zero cost. That's completely new. You couldn't do that before. You had to pay for material and for work to do that. And the third thing is you can spread what you've copied and produced digitally all around the world with one click. You couldn't do that. Well, you could make phone calls all over the world, but that was expensive, right? Now you can actually have two-directional communication all over the world. And those three things together are actually based in technology. What you got cheap processor, cheap storage, and cheap transmission on the internet. But that's what really changing. So, and that makes information incredibly important. So in that sense, I think it was right. We're entering a new era with lots of new opportunities. And as the printing press changed the world over centuries, we can't really yet even imagine how this will play out in the long term. We can start seeing it, but I think we're beginning of something new still.
Right. And now the very definition of automation is that human work will be taken over by machines. Now, in the past, this helped us with the kind of jobs that were dirty and dangerous and monotonous. But today it's affecting white-collar jobs too. And what do you think the impact of this is?
I still think that taking away monotonous jobs is the thing that we want to do, even for white-collar jobs. So, of course, the first impact that people had when they met ChatGPT, and we got a tendency to anthropomorphize, right? I never get that word right. To imagine that the machines have human capabilities, specifically when they behave in a way that seem human, right? But I think by now that people have discovered that they can see the difference between the surface of copying human behavior and as opposed to being human, and that's a huge difference. So what it does is that it can help us with monotonous stuff. It can help us with having ideas and proofread stuff and write a draft of something. And it's not that powerful that people maybe imagine in the first month or so using ChatGPT. So, if we look at people having studied this as well, we got a Swedish researcher called Carl Benedict Frey at the Oxford University, and he is quite down to earth when he recognizes that we still need the human in the loop. I usually say that when you knock the door to the AI, there is no one at home. The lights are on, but there's no one at home. It lacks so much of our human capability, of imagination, of the sense of being a person in time. So you can have a goal and an intention to reach there. You can have fantasies about the future. The AI has nothing of this. It can copy fantasies that it has read and make similar things, but it doesn't have this inner world that we have. And that's a huge difference. So Benedict Frey, for example, he says we're going to see automation specifically of remote jobs. When there is an in-person component, it's much more difficult. It's much more important to have the capabilities that humans have. Another thing that he knows is that it helps people, lower skilled people. So it kind of levelizes the competence in the workplace, that people with less experience and less skill are getting supported more, while those with lots of experience and lots of skill, they don't get the same support. And that's interesting. You also can see that you gotta have the human in the loop, since you have this lack of imagination of inner world, and also because it makes mistakes. We have seen this now. We understand that these models make hallucinations, as you call them. Well, essentially, they make mistakes. They make things up. And that's the reason for companies to be very careful. They will probably, as Benedict Frey says, that we use it for low-risk applications. They can't use it for high-risk applications where the outcomes could pose a danger or a threat to people or to physical health. So we got all these things to consider when we see the automation that's possible with current AI. And I don't think any longer that it will actually take over jobs. It would take over some job tasks. And the question that I always ask people is, what task would you gladly let a machine do for you, so that you could focus on things that you think are meaningful and interesting? And that normally opens up an opportunity, and it's an eye-opener for people, and they understand that this can actually be my powerful work colleague doing stuff for me.
So it sounds like you view AI and automation less as a risk and more as a tool for humans to utilize and at their own disposal. Now, thinking more to the future, and on this positive note, do you think there'll be like a new wave of exciting or interesting jobs that will emerge as a result of AI and automation?
Well, that is so difficult, to say, because that's why it's so interesting right now when lots of people are starting to use it. Because only when billions of human minds are starting to use such a tool, we will see the new applications, the new use cases that people will actually invent with their imagination. I'm certain that there will be new jobs and new opportunities that we don't even imagine today. But one important aspect of that is that we keep recognizing our human capability, and that we don't get kind of what I call technology seduced or impressed so much that you trust less in your human capability and more in the machine. You should still have a great trust in yourself as a human, and see what help that you could get from the machine. And in that way, I'm certain that we're going to find lots of new use cases. Another aspect of this is also that every time you automate, you lose competence because you lose training. Now, in some cases, that might not be important. If the elevator operator, for example, we don't have them any longer. That's one of the few jobs in history that actually was overtaken by technology completely, totally. I mean. And we don't really miss it. Although you could imagine the advantage in some cases having an elevator operator that gives you social interaction that you wouldn't have in an automatic elevator. So there is always something you're missing, right? And you have to evaluate and assess what kind of competence are we losing now? Is it critical or not? Should we try to keep it in some way and automate just as much as not losing that competence? That's a question that you always have to ask.
Now, traditionally, AI and automation has not only been used to improve capacity and productivity, but also enhance quality. Now, what we do at Phyron with our AI automated video ads is only one example of this. But have you seen any other interesting ventures where AI and automation are used for qualitative and creative purposes?
Well, as for quality, we already use AI since already before generative AI, because that's the case of measuring stuff, that we can measure stuff very, very precisely, even remotely in real time, and we can analyze that data to increase accuracy and quality in that way. So that's already happening. And by the way, you could always ask, thinking about measurements, I think one question that also always have to have in mind is what we kind of tend to believe that everything can be measured. So it's easy to forget what not can be measured. And you shouldn't forget about that, because that always has a great value, lots of human aspects. So quality could be more than the stuff that you measure. So you should be careful. It's not automatic that you get better quality, experience quality as a customer only because things are very accurate and precise and measured. Quality could be other things as well. And that other kind of quality, actually, without going into detail into any job, I already see where you could reach it. For example, at the moment I'm working on an article about how you could automate the marketing department in a company. And in the end, you're going to need humans. But what you notice when you talk to companies, the marketing department, since a decade or two, they are really working extremely much. They are solving tons of problems that the rest of the company thinks that always the marketing should solve that problem. So they are overloaded. And if they could get a piece of automation, the quality thing comes out of the fact that you're going to lower the stress level at the marketing department. And when people are less stressed, they got more time for doing quality work. So that's also a way of increasing quality, giving people time to focus on the stuff that they're good at doing, and taking away the load from stuff that is annoying.
Absolutely. And I guess it will definitely feed into that creativity aspect as well. When you have more time to focus less on these monotonous tasks, you have more time to unleash your creativity and explore, different ideas and experimentation.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be an interesting path, and see how creators are going to use this, because there are so many aspects of it. I talked to one artist who noted that, with AI, I suddenly get so many opportunities that I have I'm getting less secure of my own taste, of my own choice, because I got so much to choose between. So one thing that you need to learn working with AI as a creator is to be more sure of yourself and start improving your capacity of choosing and deciding, this is good enough, this is where I should stop. No, not going ahead for several days trying to find another little bit better solution, right? So it poses a lot of challenges to creators in that way. And also, again, about this losing competence, when you start using machines for doing the handcraft that you used to train on, manual kind of work, even drawing with your hands, you lose some kind of competence. So how much is that a threat towards creativity or not? Well, we have to find out, and people have to discover that and try to find their own path. But so it's certainly going to be interesting what it does to creativity. Machines are not creative. They can help you open your minds, because they suggest things that you might not think of, since they have this random generator. But they rarely go out of the frame of all humans. If you make a test of creativity, machines versus humans, you can see that machines provide a decent quality of innovation, but steady kind of level. But the most innovative solutions are always made by humans. So there are so much things to discover here in creativity and AI.
Absolutely. And how do you think AI and automation will affect the whole educational system and this concept of lifelong learning?
Well, hopefully, I think education is maybe one of the most important things to make the world better. So I've got a lot of hopes here, because we got too little resources to give education to everyone in the world. And here there might be an opportunity to really increase the opportunity for lots of people to get education. And above all, people and students all over the world could get a really nice tool to help themselves. You know, when you learn something, once upon a time, you had to go and find the manual, the printed manual, and learn something. Then we got internet search, so you could look for a digital manual or something. Then you got YouTube. You could see how people did things. And now we're approaching, which is the most effective thing in the world when learning. It's asking your friend. When you know a friend, a competent friend that knows how to do it, you can just ask him to show you or tell you what it is. And that's where AI is approaching. It's approaching actually being able to have a companion that it could always ask. And that's what makes it so kind of efficient for learning. So I got good hopes, but we also have to recognize again that humans play a huge role in education, because you're going to have that teacher, that mentor, which has a human relation to you and can see how you're feeling today, and to give you the right push to encourage you to go ahead, etc. And a machine can do that at a certain level, but never as a human could. So we got to be very careful to keep combining humans with this new technology to give good education. But I actually think it could be a great tool for giving people more people education.
And now shifting a little, so if AI and automation does translate to fewer jobs, how do you think society will handle this huge imbalance between those who have jobs versus those who don't?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and I got no good answer. When you say that, I usually say technology changes the world, but people make it magical. Well, the wheel, the printing press, electricity, whatever, changes the world, but without humans, nothing happens. And the thing is that technological change could go very fast, as we see right now. But you also got the change that depends on what people think, opinions and thoughts and feelings. And that normally doesn't change as quickly as technology. And it's so much about how we shape those ideas and opinions together as a community in society, in a country, or in the world globally. And where that is heading is very difficult to see. One interesting example right now is about copyright and how that relates to training of these large language models, for example, or the image tools, because they're being trained on huge amounts of stuff which has been created by humans without giving any credit or compensation at all. Now, 20 years ago, I think we would just say, well, whatever, technology is making the world better, so internet's making the world better, and we have to accept that that's the way it is. Today, we got a more skeptical view on big tech companies. And I also think that this touches people emotionally. Should we really let those tech companies make a profit on what humans have created without compensating them or giving credit? And where we're going to position ourselves in this discussion depends so much on what the collective, all of us together, will think about this question, what values we have. And that's difficult to say. I mean, we don't know where we're going to end up. It's not for one person to decide, or one policymaker or one company. It's about what people would think together. And so the same thing could go for jobs. I mean, today it's very much our idea about status is very much based on having a good job, having well, you know, maybe money. Not everyone, but most people, I think they should consider money or having a property is status kind of, and people are trying to reach high status. That's kind of intuitive in us. So in that case, we not having a job is a very difficult situation. That's stigmatized kind of. But that's an idea that could change. I mean, if things are getting more automated, maybe we could just change ideas about how important it is to have a formal job. Job maybe could be something that is something you do for yourself to realize yourself, to develop yourself. That could be considered a job, but it depends what people think. So all this is a political question, which in turn depends on the ideas and opinions that people will shape together, and that's very difficult to say where it heads. But one thing I should say at least is that if we manage to automate away jobs, if big companies manage to do that, it's not obvious that those companies should have all the profit from that action. It could be considered something that we do together in the world. So we should distribute that opportunity. And how we should do that? Well, you ask me. I don't know. Some people talk about citizen income and stuff like that, but I'm not sure that's the model. In any case, these are difficult questions. We're going to see where we end up, because they depend so much on not only on politics, but what people think and the ideas that we have together.
Absolutely. I think we could go on and on talking about this,
Sure.
but let's go ahead and wrap up here. Mats, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much, Daniela. It's a pleasure to join you.